Hey guys, so for today, we're actually about to start getting into our class novel night. If you have noticed, I have attached a link to Plan Book. I believe it was on Tuesday that has the class novel for you to reference and to read whenever you have assigned readings out of it. Unfortunately, since you are remote learners, I'm unable to get books to you right now. You're welcome to go to get one from a library, to purchase one yourself. It's Night by Elie Wiesel. Looks like this. But in case you don't want to do one of those things, there is a digital copy that has been linked to Plan Book for you to use. So the first thing today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of these night intro notes. Basically, this is just going to kind of create some background knowledge for you regarding the novel and the events that were taking place during this time. This novel is a nonfiction novel and is a true story about a Holocaust survivor. He was imprisoned in a concentration camp, and it pretty much walks you through when he was put into the concentration camp, what happened right before that, all the way up until he is liberated. So this is where we start. So here are your notes. So first of all, who was in World War II? World War II is what took place during the class novel, during Night. The Holocaust was part of World War II. So these are the people that were in World War II. So the Allies, which were the people that were trying to help those that were imprisoned in the Holocaust, concentration camps, etc. The Allies were the U.S., Soviet and Socialist Republic, the United Kingdom, China, France, Poland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and the Netherlands. However, you have on the other side the Axis powers, the ones doing all of the cruel punishment to all types of people in like Germany and pretty much throughout Europe, were Nazi Germany, Japan, Italy, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Finland, Thailand, and Iraq. Notice that there are more allies than there are Axis powers. And once the Allies did reach the shores of Normandy on D-Day, that was kind of the beginning of the takeover by the Allies. So this is just World War II who was portion. It's all about Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler, we're going to go through a slide next, but he was kind of the one in charge of Nazi Germany at this point in time, and the majority of what went on, especially the cruel type of things, were his ideas. So Adolf Hitler was a German soldier in World War I. Very powerful public speaker. This man could convince you of anything, which is probably why so many people believed in his views that only blonde-haired, blue-eyed children should be survivors. The man Germany, he was the guy that Germany hoped would fix all of their economic problems after World War I because they were in severe debt. They were in a recession. They elected him leader of Germany and the leader of the Nazi political party. We now know that the Nazi political party was not a good thing. At that point in time, many people in Germany believed that was the answer to their prayers. He did not like Jewish people. He was a true enemy. He was an infamous initiator of the Holocaust, which, again, just a terrible, terrible event. Tons of people died. 6 million of those people that died were Jews, which is what Elie Wiesel is in our novel. This is just his family tree. Right here it shows Adolf Hitler. One fact, though, is that he is actually part Jewish himself. However, he held a lot against Germans. So, interesting fact. This is him as a baby, and when he was young, you can definitely tell the resemblance of that one. This one's a little hard to see. Then he was a soldier, as mentioned before, in World War I. So there are 2 pictures of him. And then this was when he was chancellor. Okay, these are kind of the pictures he's more famous for that most people would recognize him from, especially with his little mustache that he has. That's kind of his go-to, where if you see that, you automatically think, oh, that's Hitler. Like that pulls him out from all different photos. World War II happened. Why did it happen? So the nationalistic tension between different countries was a huge issue at that point in time. There were many issues from World War I that were not resolved. The Great Depression was going on, but not only in the U.S. was it going on, but it was also going on throughout different countries as well, like Germany. Okay, in 1937, Japan invaded China. In 1939, the Germans invaded Poland. In 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Those three events are kind of what pulled the Allies together and into this war. But as terrifying as all of those things were, that is what brought the group of countries together that did end up liberating all of the people in the concentration camps and coming through in the end and winning the war. So what happened in World War II? So first of all, World War ended in 1918. World War I. Adolf Hitler then became the leader in 1921. And then in about September 30th of 1928, Elie Wiesel, which is who this book is about, he was born. Then we hit the Great Depression in 1929 when the stock market in America crashed. Germans elected all Nazis into power in 1930. Adolf Hitler voted Chancellor of Germany on January 30th of 1933. And then soon after the first concentration camp opened in Berlin. The Germans stripped Jews of all their rights, and then soon after that, actually in Berlin, Germany, where the first concentration camp was opened, were the Olympics in 1936. So Germany did not do as well as what Hitler intended in these Olympics, and that was one more thing that kind of angered him and set him off. So Hitler then decided to create a war plan and put this all into motion. It kind of started with Kristallnacht. You'll learn more about that later. So Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand declared war on Germany in 1939. And then Nazis began to euthanize sick and disabled people. So in other words, to kill them. And then somebody attempted to assassinate Hitler on November 8th of 1939, and they did not succeed. The next one talks about when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands and they bombed Britain. This is at the point where Elie Wiesel, the main character in your book, was 12 and he was studying Kabbalah. So that would have been on September 30th of 1940. The Nazis then went into Africa. They started doing mass murders, forcing Jews to wear stars, and they started to use gas chambers at different concentration camps, especially at Auschwitz. On December 7th of 1941, Japan decided to bomb Pearl Harbor, which was kind of a blindside on the U.S. We had multiple kind of concerns that something was about to happen, but we weren't 100% certain. And then they bombed Pearl Harbor, and that was kind of what brought us into the war. And Hitler then soon after, so Japan bombed on December 7th, and on December 11th, Hitler declared war on us. We, however, then decided we were going to have our own concentration camps and send Japanese Americans to them. They were not as bad as the concentration camps over in Europe. However, they were still not good. So when Elie Wiesel turned 15, he was then deported, him and his family. So that was May of 1944. But then June 6th of 1944, that's when the Allied forces hit the shores of Normandy for D-Day. So that was kind of when the Allies started to make way across Europe and to Axis territory. So Elie and his father then went to Buchenwald, another concentration camp. Auschwitz was soon after liberated, and Elie's father does not survive Buchenwald. Elie is eventually liberated from Buchenwald soon after. So he's liberated on April 5th, and on April 30th, Hitler committed suicide, and May 7th, Germany then surrendered. Many believe he committed suicide because he knew that, in fact, he had lost the war, and he didn't want to see the repercussions of such a such a defeat. We then bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then soon after those two big events, Japan surrendered. And then after that, Ellie traveled to Jerusalem for the first time. You don't really hear much about that part of his life in the book. However, it is just kind of interesting that he had not traveled much up until this point. Sorry about that. There we go. So what was the Holocaust? There are some different pictures and stuff you may see on this that are not the prettiest, but they're things that will benefit your learning. So this is just a map that shows you where kind of the different concentration camps are. All these little black dots are concentration camps. Some were definitely much bigger than others, and things like that. So if you want to take a closer look at that, the PowerPoint is attached to Plan Book. Okay, so this just tells you how many people were killed, and where they estimated how many people were killed in different places. So obviously the most people killed were Jews at almost 6 million. Prisoners of war, 2 to 3. Ethnic Poles, about 2. Romanian, disabled, and so on. Okay, so interesting, very high numbers. Auschwitz killed over 1 million of these people themselves, and then it kind of goes through the rest of them. I believe in the book you'll hear about Belzec and Kowalno. So these are the different years. So 1942, the most people were killed. Just some different pictures. Okay, the burning of the synagogue in the Warsaw Ghetto, Auschwitz. This is probably one of the most famous pictures of Auschwitz, just because it's the one you see the most. Some people in the concentration camps. You see the bodies behind, loading up trains. Again, these are very graphic. So you have bodies being thrown in a pit, being burned. These are kind of what the prisoners in concentration camps looked like. You know, they were just kind of skin and bone at this point. They didn't receive much food. So now we're going to get to Elie Wiesel, who is the main character of your book. So he is well known as a Holocaust survivor, mostly because he wrote this book that has become very, very famous. He was born in Romania. His family was deported and they went from camp to camp. Him and his father ended up being split up from from his mom and sisters. He ended up winning a Nobel Peace Prize in 1986. In 1960 is when the book was published, but it took 3 years to sell only 3,000 copies. However, at this point today, it has been translated into 30 different languages, and it is on Oprah Winfrey's book club list. He refused to make a film out of the book. He said that he's afraid if they made a film, A, he would have to relive more of what he doesn't want to relive anymore, and B, that it would not accurately show the terrors of what truly was life was like in a concentration camp. So this was him in 2010. This is where he lives in Romania, this house right here on the corner. Elie is actually in this picture. Okay, he's second row from the bottom, and he's the 7th one from the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's right here. So just kind of shows you how scrunched those cots and that type of thing were within the concentration camps. This picture of his book. And that is it. So once we go through this stuff, in class, the kids are going to do a different activity than the remote learners. Remote learners, I want you to make sure you look at Plan Book. So right here, okay, it says through chat, so on Teams. Now you need to send me a list of 10 facts about the Holocaust and World War II that are not well known. This is going to require you to do some research, okay, so not common facts. Find some interesting facts that not most people know. Number them 1 through 10, send them through me on chat, and you will get your credit, just like the kids in class will get credit for what they're doing. If you have any questions, let me know.